All right. Good day, fellow hoteliers, and welcome to episode 271 of the Hotel Marketing Podcast by Travel Boom. I'm your host, Pete DeMayo. And who
And
do we
I'm
have with us today?
Mackenzie.
Hey, Mackenzie.
Yes.
And together, along with all the team that's off the camera that don't get on the podcast, we're the Boom Squad, and we're here to help independent hotels just like yourselves, boutique properties, RV parks, you name it. If you're in the accommodation space, our job is to help make your life easier. So you can learn more about us at travelboommarketing.com or just keep on listening. We'll tell you everything you need to know. Life is easy. So today, we're going to lend a hand to all those struggling in the boutique hotel industry who are trying hard to make their properties stand out in a competitive and ever-changing environment. But you know what's really cool? This is the first episode. Mackenzie, this is the very first one. You're here for it.
Yep.
Pretty cool, right?
Yep.
So
groundbreaking stuff, you guys.
bum, bum, bum. We are live on YouTube and live on LinkedIn. So most likely, I'm imagining most people are going to be listening to this on the podcast, and you don't know about us being live because, hey, live happens in real life time.
Yep.
But if you go to youtube.com/travelboommarketing or check us out at LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/company/travelboommarketing. You can also tune in for these live episodes. They're going to be happening every other Tuesday at 3:30 in the afternoon Eastern time. So we really do hope that you join us on YouTube and LinkedIn. You can see our smiling faces, and over time we'll start getting involved with the chats and live streams and whatnot, and it'll be a lot of fun. So, Mackenzie, this is brand new. Are you ready to struggle through this with me?
We got this. We got this, Pete. Let's do it.
I think we do. So, all right. Well, before we dive into the real show, we want to let you guys know a little bit about ourselves. And I've got a question. Mackenzie, I asked you this earlier, and I don't know your answer. But here it is. I need you to name one movie hotel that you would love to spend the night at, and one you would do anything you can to avoid.
Yeah, I love this question. I think it's perfect for us on this podcast, and it definitely made me sit there and think. I'm definitely a movie lover, so I was kind of racking my brain to think of some of the options that I had.
So,
should I start with the good or the bad?
I say you start with the good one, and then I'll do my good one, and then you do your bad one, and I'll do my bad one.
Okay, that works. Okay, so a hotel that I would love to stay at is the Plaza Hotel, very iconic in New York. And the reason, the movies that would make me want to stay there are Home Alone, of course, and then
I was going to choose that one.
Yep, I had a feeling, and this was the one I thought that we might get the same. And then this is very niche, but there is a movie about this little girl. Her name is Eloise, and it's called Eloise at the Plaza. And she's like a little diva, and she runs around and wreaks havoc all around the hotel. And it's awesome. And I grew up watching that. So it's definitely the Plaza for me.
That's a very solid option.
Yes.
So, hey, and you get to meet Macaulay Culkin, you get to meet Trump, you get to meet Eloise, all kinds of fun people.
All kinds of stars.
I love it.
Yes.
And the bird lady, she's there.
Oh, yes. Such a good one.
All right. So I was going to choose that one, but I didn't because I thought it might get picked already. So I chose the Eden Resort in Couples Retreat.
Okay.
Which is one of my favorite movies. Have you seen Couples Retreat?
No.
Oh, okay. So we're not going to cut the podcast short because it's live now.
Okay.
But go check it out. It's Vince Vaughn. It's just all these big names, and it is just hilarious. It's one of my favorite movies, and they're sent to this resort, and they thought they're going to an all-inclusive like fun resort, but they ended up going to the side of Eden Resort that is for couples counseling, and they get kind of stuck into all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So
do you know?
Definitely.
So it's a real resort.
It is a real resort. I looked it up. It's actually the St. Regis Bora Bora Resort is where it is. But in the movie, it's Eden West and I guess Eden North or one of the other ones.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, phenomenal. If you're into just comedy, check it out. If you're into comedy and hoteling, it's even better.
Yeah. I love that. I forgot to mention too, for the Plaza, they actually have an Eloise themed suite. So again, keep in mind, this is a little girl who lives there with, I think it's her grandma. She lives there permanently. Everything is covered in pink. It's adorable, but I bet it is a pretty penny to stay there for the night. So we'll see if I ever do it.
Yeah, we'll get you there. So,
Yeah, it'd be cool.
all
All
right.
right.
So, which one would you never want to stay at?
So it's funny because this is one of my favorite movies. But I would never want to stay here. I would never, ever, ever want to stay at the Overlook Hotel from The Shining, which
New.
you knew that was coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe I was doing some research on this because you'd asked me earlier. I believe the real hotel that they film inside is the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, but there's another property that they used for like aerial shots in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, this movie is so creepy. I would not want to have that experience. It seems like a beautiful place, but that movie has me traumatized. So no.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things. Even if I stayed there when it as the actual property, I don't think you can get that out of your mind that there are those two
No.
twins and the creepy tricycle and all that kind of stuff.
Red Rum. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
not be having a good night's sleep there. That's for sure.
So, what was the name of the hotel in The Shining?
It's called the Overlook Hotel, but
Overlook.
the one that they film inside is in Estes Park, Colorado, and it's called the Stanley.
Gotcha. So,
But yeah, either way, all of it, I'm good.
yeah. So that's kind of like way before the world of social influencers and all that kind of stuff. You wonder if the Overlook Hotel knew what they were getting into when they booked that hotel in completely off-peak season to
Yeah,
fill some rooms.
yeah, and I'm sure that they've got, different ways to kind of honor the film and do different things, but I mean, some people love that. There's a whole sector of travel vloggers that love to go to spooky places, and even one of our clients is a historic hotel that is rumored to be haunted, and they've had multiple influencers stay. So,
They do.
yeah.
Yes. So, all right.
Ooh.
Cool. That's a good one. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's yours?
Shout out. Yeah. Shout out to them as well. Well, cool. So my one that I'd never want to stay at, and it's Hotel Artemis. Have you ever seen that movie?
No. That's the
Okay.
name of
So
the movie?
the name of the movie is Hotel Artemis, and it's technically not a hotel, so I guess I've kind of cheated, but it's a private hospital for criminals,
Oh.
and like people get shot up, and then they go there, and it's supposed to be like a safe place where they can get fixed up,
Oh, wow.
but they it all goes all goes to hell and goes in a bad direction, and everyone
Yeah.
gets shot up and stuff like that. So
Is it more of like an action movie, you would say then?
definitely an action movie for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
So yeah, it was either that or I think The Continental was my other choice from John Wick.
Okay.
So in both of those cases, bad stuff happens, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be a part of it.
Yep. All good.
So, all right. So hey, that's a little bit about Mackenzie and I. Hopefully that you enjoyed that. If you have a place you would never want to stay or would love to stay, share it with us either in the comments on either YouTube or LinkedIn, or just hit us up at podcast@travelboommarketing.com and we'll talk about it too. All right. So with that being said, we're going to jump over to the next segment, which is Newsaroos. Now, Mackenzie, do I need to bother singing this stupid song or not?
Come on, you have to sing it. It wouldn't be
Okay.
right. This is our inaugural live, podcast. You've got to do it.
Okay. Well, I'm pulling the mic in close then.
Okay.
With hotel marketing that cannot lose, now it's time for Newsaroos.
Bravo.
All right, now the mic's going to disappear from the screen. All right, so the news item today is actually a really interesting one. We've had a lot of amazing conversations with some of our clients related to the growth in the RV world, campgrounds and whatnot. And the news today comes to us from Modern Campground, and it was just released on May 3rd. The title is Marriott to launch first autograph collection safari camp in Serengeti late this year. I thought this one was really cool because we've seen just a huge growth in the RV and campground segment, as well as in that alternative accommodation space like glamping, tiny homes, things like that. And I just think Marriott is particularly the autograph collection because it's kind of like a boutique property to start with. It gives Marriott the opportunity to really stretch their wings, get outside of the traditional hotel world, and do something really special. So I say definitely check out this article. Yeah, there are some things that I was kind of learning as reading about it and the growth of the segment, but also with some of our RV clients, some things I kind of wanted the listeners to know as well. The first one is the RV parks and campgrounds have seen about a 4.3% growth year over year for the past several years. But in the past 3 years alone, that market has increased 9.3% per year. It is really booming. And where that boom is coming from is that luxury and amenity rich RV park experience. So I think if you have the space for it, or you're in that sector of hospitality, it's a great time to be there. You have things like glamping, tiny homes, luxury camping is really hot right now. So you lean into that with your social, with your marketing and everything. If you have those options for guests, let them know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is such a cool news item, and it's going to be really interesting to see some of the other brands, big players in the space, kind of start to follow that trend. I mean, I'm not really aware of any other major flags that are doing something like this, but I could be wrong. So yeah, I'm super interested to see what it looks like. The article that you shared said it opens in Q3 of this year, so
Yep.
we will see very soon.
Yep. And Marriott does not jump in half-heartedly. So I'm really excited to see how this forms up. I mean, obviously opening in Serengeti, you're going to have people wanting to be there. Obviously, it's a bucket list type trip.
Absolutely.
But even in the States here, it's a ton of opportunities to do that exact same thing.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff.
So that's the news. The next segment, which I think is quickly becoming my favorite, is Room for Improvement with Mackenzie.
Yes, I love this one. This is like my new delegated section because I just have so much fun with it, especially reading off the Reddit hotel usernames. So this one is coming from us today from OK Broccoli 554. And the subject line is booked an adults only hotel only to be defrauded. So this one's pretty interesting. We're currently staying at a hotel in Key West. My husband and I specifically booked this resort because it specifies very clearly and directly on the website that it is adults only, 21 plus. Given that we haven't had a vacation away from our kids in 3 years, this really appealed to us and was the entire reason that we booked it. Day 2, we woke up to kids running up and down the halls and slamming doors while screaming. We looked out and saw kids in the pool. We asked the staff what was going on, and they said that they were losing money by not allowing kids. So they did away with the adults only. No warning to guests, and still states on the website currently that it is adults only. This is deception and fraud. We would have booked elsewhere had we not been defrauded based on the adults only content on their website that does not correctly depict their hotel policies. We are so disappointed and feel swindled, to say the least. How do we address this with the manager? I thought this one was very interesting and very unique. I'm sure that this has probably happened somewhere else before, but I really do see where they're coming from. I think that's very inconsiderate of the hotel to make such a change and not do any type of announcement. You've just left a really bad impression on somebody that otherwise had a really great, sentiment towards you and could have been even a repeat guest. But now I doubt that they're going to come back. And if they do, it's going to be with their kids. It's going to be a total different type of trip. So.
Right. This is way different than, we say we had a hot tub, but it's currently closed for cleaning.
Right.
Something like that. This is, my entire vacation.
You're changing the product.
Right. And you have OK Broccoli and Mr. OK Broccoli going on vacation, and they're expecting to be away from kids. Absolutely. And they got the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big mistake. I looked into this a little bit farther and looked at the specific property. And if you look at like archive.org, you can see where they were saying, hey, we're adults only, all that kind of fun stuff. They've since updated their website and their marketing efforts to make sure that they have removed the adults only part.
Good. Yeah.
I guess, Mackenzie, from your perspective, you're, on the new business side. And if you had a hotel come to you and say, hey, this is our market, we're adults only, how do you address that issue when you haven't filled rooms and you realize that the adults only angle is not working for you. At some point, you have to pivot. But how do
Yeah.
you do that without, I mean, in this for Broccoli's case, without seriously pissing her off?
Yeah, I think it's really just in the way that they handled it. I think it totally makes sense that they were probably having, some issues, and weren't seeing the success that they were by marketing as an adults only resort. That's fine, if you want to kind of change your segment and your audience, but I think that handling it in a way where you're being very transparent, um, I would assume that this was something that kind of burned them. I'm glad to know that they're updating their website and other digital marketing efforts to reflect the new change, but they should have been a little bit more proactive and less reactive about the situation.
I think you're right. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to 60 Seconds for Success as well. But I think that's one of those things where if you looked at that property, we're not going to share the name of the property on the show, but they got hammered by a lot of different users on TripAdvisor. A lot of the reviews on Google were all saying the same thing: is the people are going there expecting to have an adults only experience, and they had kids jumping in the pools, they had kids running up and down the halls. I have kids. I think that's great. That's fun, except for if you're going on a vacation specifically to not have to deal with that.
Right, right. And I don't have children, but I can imagine that frustration of planning this trip around the fact that it's quality time with Mr. and Mrs. Broccoli, and then there's a bunch of little Broccolis running around, and they're mad, rightfully
Yeah,
so.
a floret of broccolis.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this one's really, really interesting, and I lost my train of thought, but I was going to add more.
Yeah,
But I think you hit the nail on the head. Oh, this was what I was going to say. The fact that it's something that changes their entire property, it's not having a maintenance issue and something is down. It, I mean, yeah, it kind of is just deceitful in a way.
yeah. Hopefully they'll. It looks like they've already righted the course and they've
Yeah,
realized that hey, adults only is not working for the property. They've changed course. Hopefully they're going to reach out, and they probably did. Looking at the property, their marketing is definitely on point. Seems like the staff is amazing. So I'm hoping that they reached out to them
for
and
sure.
tried to make it right the best that they could.
Yeah, and hopefully they are seeing better success with kind of changing the audience and opening that to families.
Hmm. And I'll say one thing is, if you're a guest listening to this, she should have gone to the manager,
Right.
talk to them, and explain the situation. And that's pretty much what all the Reddit comments were saying as well. Was, hey, go tell them what the problem is.
Yeah.
They will probably, reduce your rate or do something to make it right. And I
Yeah.
always go back to that saying is, in the hotel space, we want to emulate the innkeeper from days of old. How can you make that person feel welcome, feel at home, and solve problems? Because a lot of times, if you solve the problem above and beyond, you're going to make a happier guest than if they didn't have a problem to start with. So
Yep.
you can
That's
always right the ship.
agreed.
So, well, hey, Mackenzie, you know who else needs their ship righted?
Boutique hoteliers.
They do. Those boutique
Yes.
hoteliers are sinking sometimes, and you've got the secret to solve all their problems.
Yeah, I'll try
Uh,
my best.
okay, so the main topic, and I don't think I actually even mentioned it really at the beginning, uh, but is the three biggest challenges that boutique hotels are facing right now, and more importantly, how to solve them.
Yeah.
So, Mackenzie, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of set the expectation really high for me. I'm going to try my best to solve what I think are three of the biggest problems that a lot of boutique hotels are facing today. So we'll dive in. The first one is limited resources. And if you're a boutique hotelier listening to this, I know that you can relate. It's very difficult when you're not part of a big brand and you don't have that support and that backing. You're wearing multiple hats. A lot of hoteliers that I speak with, boutique hoteliers in particular, are wearing multiple hats. They're acting as a GM, they're acting as a director of sales, a marketing manager, property manager. So they're doing a variety of things as just one person. And I think what tends to happen with this is marketing is the one thing that kind of gets put aside. And it's super important. Obviously, we know that that's everything that we do. So my advice to those boutique hoteliers who are struggling and don't have the bandwidth is hire an amazing agency like us, or hire a local agency or work with somebody, have somebody on the property whose sole focus is dedicated to that, because you will see the results tenfold. um, I think the main problem with this and with marketing getting pushed to the back burner is you have fewer touch points altogether. So, from an awareness and visibility perspective, if people don't know who you are, they're not going to book. I mean, one of the things that we really focus on at Travel Boom is a full funnel marketing strategy. So, getting those people who are higher in the funnel, but even your low converting ones, you still have to be doing some level of marketing to make that final push. And you need to have a good website experience. Somebody is going
Mhm.
to abandon super quickly if they're not seeing that. So I think this one's really important.
It is. And I was on a call with one of our clients. First name is Bob. And he actually brought up a really good way of phrasing it. He goes, I don't have a depth issue. I have a width issue. I just
Mhm.
have too many things going on that I'm spread too thin. And as a result, I'm not doing a great job marketing. I'm not doing a great job onboarding. I'm not doing a good job doing this because I got too much going on.
Yeah.
And I think it does, like you mentioned before, outsourcing. We don't, do the hard sell thing on this podcast,
Yeah.
but to an agency for some things. But at the end of the day, you do need to have somebody on staff. They don't even have to be actually at the property, who's charged and responsible and held accountable for marketing efforts.
Yeah.
And if you're an 8-room boutique, if you're a small B&B, whatever that might be, is you need to at least say, hey, your job is to do this. Spend 30 minutes a day, if it's on social, if it's reviewing the website, and then outsourcing the stuff that you've identified as problems. You don't have to take it all on your own shoulders. We're lucky with everything from AI, with freelancers, with agencies like ours. You've got people behind you that can help. The hardest thing to do though is be that delegator and trusting other people to carry the weight for you.
Absolutely. And I think, with what you were saying about the resources being out there, we've connected with a lot of really great hospitality consultants in the space at different events and trade shows that we've gone to. So even going to somebody like that for recommendation, and I think just the preparation is the biggest part. You have to have some type of marketing plan. It makes it a lot easier to kind of execute throughout the year. But I do understand, there's a lack of staff and time. Time is money, so it definitely makes it difficult when you're juggling so many different things at once.
And I'm gonna add one more thing to that because I don't want to talk about it forever. But
Yeah.
having some type of process in place, here we use the EO system, or like level 10 type meetings where you set goals on a quarterly basis, you work through them, cross them off, and move on. And I think more hoteliers need to adopt that, because the thing that usually keeps you up at night is not the stuff that you're doing, it's the stuff that in the back of your mind that you need to do that you
Mhm.
haven't got around to. So sometimes just getting it on paper, allocating a little bit of time, and then huddling away for a half day once a quarter, or a full day if you can, and just focusing on your marketing, it's going to solve the other problems that we're about to talk about too.
Yeah, and once you kind of open that can of worms, and I mean, it's even in a personal perspective. Once you do something that you've been putting off for a while, you start to come up with other fresh ideas that can make the situation even better. So that would be my recommendation as well, is to really just prepare and get a solid marketing plan in place for the year or the quarter, whatever it may be. Awesome.
That is awesome. So that's the first thing. I think if you solve that, honestly, if you solve that, then you can stop listening right now, because that's going to solve all your other problems.
Still
But you're
having
still
that out.
listening. But you're still listening. So what is number two?
Yeah, number two, I think the first one ties into it, because I think in a way, if you can solve this, you might be able to affect this one. But really, what it is occupancy fluctuations, and especially in areas that are super seasonal. But boutique hotels are really seeing wide swings in occupancy due to things like seasonality or economic shifts or even event reliance. So if you're a hotel that has a lot of events. You've got great weather in the summertime and you're constantly having live bands, and then winter is just kind of a lull period and you're not really doing anything, then you're absolutely going to see an impact on occupancy and revenue overall. Our research finds that boutique hotels are actually averaging 62% occupancy annually. So that's well below what's probably needed for optimal profitability. So definitely trying to manage that throughout the year and see more of an even basis is a good step to take.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how you start having the low occupancy, so you do the necessary evil in some cases of going to the OTAs,
OTAs, yes.
dropping rate, whatever it might be. But I would say when it comes to occupancy fluctuations, a lot of the questions that we get, Mackenzie, you and I have sit in on I don't know how many new business discussions in the past.
Yeah.
It's always, I don't know how to fill my midweek. And that's hard for a boutique owner to do because usually the stay is an experience and not just I need a room.
Right.
So when we talked about bringing people in, make sure that your revenue strategy is on point because you may need to say, if I'm full on the weekend, look at a wider variance in your ADR.
Yeah.
Lower those midweek rates and increase your weekend rates so you can find that threshold where you're filling up your rooms, but it's at just the right level.
Yeah. And if
Because
it
the
makes
reality
sense
is,
sorry, I was going to say, if it makes sense for your hotel, focus on some of those audiences that are going to do the midweek stays, like corporate retreats and other group bookings.
Yep, you got to work a couple different angles, and the marketing strategies for those are wildly different. The PPC strategies may not work well for driving a midweek stay, but talking to group planners, things like that, can be a phenomenal one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Leveraging some of like those local partnerships, I think would be huge. I was recently having a conversation with a hotel in Ohio. And their sales manager had shared that with me. She's like, we crush it with group bookings, but a lot of those are local businesses that are coming here to do executive meetings or corporate retreats. So we don't do a lot of marketing. It's more so just referral basis. So you kind of have to do out of the box things, I think, to stand out for those midweek stays and for those lull periods when occupancy is kind of low.
Which is why I say if you take the time to review what we talked about in number 1, which is kind of making sure that you're addressing limited resources part in your marketing aspect, spend the time there, and you can start thinking about how can I fix these occupancy fluctuations before they actually come up, because I guarantee you the same problems you have right now are the ones you're going to have 6 months. And if you spend some time thinking about in a calm environment, you're going to be able to be much more effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that kind of covers everything for number 2, unless you have anything else.
I think you said it best, look at different ways, go outside the box, and, do you have opportunities to have people working remote at your property? Can you reach that digital nomad to get them to visit the property? Or do you have, if you're a boutique bed and breakfast and you have just a kick butt breakfast, tell people about it. There's nothing wrong with bringing people in on the F&B side. At least you're getting them an awareness of the property that they can share with others.
100%. And spend those times that, things are kind of slower, getting your strategy in place and making sure you're doing the things that you can't do during peak season when you're wearing those hats and attending to guests. That would be my recommendation as well. So I love it. Cool. Okay. I'm going to go into number 3, and I think we kept this list at 3, but there's many. So if you're a boutique hotelier, feel free to shoot us a note and let us know what you would consider to be, if you agree with us, if we did it right with this list of 3, or if there are some other challenges that you're experiencing. And hopefully we can even help you solve them. So we'd love to hear from you. But for number 3, the last one is, it's a really crowded and competitive marketing landscape out there, even for the boutique industry right now. So travelers really have hundreds of options at their fingertips. And when you have other platforms like Airbnb and VRBO, you have all of these big flag properties and then the independents. It's almost overwhelming. There's so many options out there. So it makes it really, really difficult to stand out and grab a hold of your ideal guest. Um, especially online too. It's very, very crowded and competitive. So the noise can really drown out your UVP as a hotel and as a brand. So really what we would recommend here is focusing on storytelling. What sets your brand apart from somebody else? What is something that a guest would get at your hotel that they would never get at a flag down the street? That's kind of just a place for them to lay their head at night. What's the history of your place? Who works there? Tell stories. It's super important. Pete, do you have anything on that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Particularly if you're a boutique, again, it's the experience. It's if they wanted to stay at, no offense, Holiday Inn, if they just want to stay at a Holiday Inn, that's where they would stay, right? But they're coming to you for an experience. So lean in on that experience.
Yeah.
If you're kind of a little bit of a cheeky property, make that the experience that you're giving your guest before they arrive. Everything from the website to your email communications to your social speaking voice, all that kind of stuff. Lean into that. Find out what makes yourself unique and then lock in on that. That's the reason people are going to be looking to stay at some of these more unique properties.
I feel like people are very hesitant to do this because they feel like they're drawing a line in the sand and they're kind of, well, this person's not going to go for this. Yeah, maybe your hotel is more catered to a younger audience and older people are not going to want to stay based on what you have, but there's still so much out there. I think niching down is far better than trying to just go after everything. You're not going to get all of those guests either way. So,
yep. Yeah. And I think you mentioned as well, but, talking about local content, this is where a boutique has the opportunity to really differentiate themselves is by, if you are in an area, okay, this area around here, and of the best barbecue places in the world. If in my case, I think it's Little Pigs in Myrtle Beach. There's a couple locations to check them out. But if that's, if you're kind of a foodie, lean in on that, spend time building that content and you can become the conduit to your area. So you get those people who want to come to the area. They don't know where to stay. You're the trusted local person and they're going to want to stay at you. Again, putting on that hat of a true innkeeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just establishing yourself as a knowledgeable person in the area. And you're kind of selling the area itself beyond just your hotel, which I think is really, really cool. And it creates almost like this ecosystem in these communities where boutique hotels really thrive. So I love that. I think that's a super great point that I don't think I hit on too much. So thank you, Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think my last point that I want to mention on that is just maintaining consistency. I think it's super important to have that storytelling aspect, but making sure that you're keeping it the same throughout all of the channels that you're using for marketing throughout your website. If you want to stand out, that's great. But maybe don't reinvent the wheel and at least have a solid foundation in place of different variations of your tone or your logo and just your identity as a whole. You don't want to be too confusing and almost unrecognizable to potential guests, but you want to have something that makes you stand out and is pretty unique.
I love it. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, I think the things that you covered are on point. I think it's awesome. Hopefully a lot of the boutique owners that are listening to us and they need help, I think hopefully this is going to be a helpful episode for them.
Yeah. And at least, you can probably relate to a lot of the things that we mentioned. And as we kind of, continue to grow and have these conversations with you all, there might be future editions of this episode with some other issues that we didn't talk about today.
Absolutely. All right. So that kind of wraps up the main topic for today. Hopefully these are the 3 things that are going to help boutique owners, solve all their problems. Again, taking the time and thinking about your problems in advance, I think is a big takeaway. But like Mackenzie said, you got 3 things. You got making sure that you're solving your limited resources issue, outsourcing, trusted partners, advisors, and whatnot, occupancy fluctuations, thinking about it, watching your ADR, making sure that you're in the right place. And then how do you differentiate yourself in a crowded environment is not be part of the crowd to start with and be unique. So
Yeah, and
hopefully
I
that
think,
is helpful.
sorry, I was going to say one last thing is, listening to the summary, I think it's important to keep in mind that a lot of these probably will never go away entirely, and you're always going to have to face them on some certain level. But it's really important to kind of be proactive and take steps. And if you need help getting started, we're your people to help you do that.
Where would they go though? I mean, where to get help?
I think it's probably Travel Boom.
You mean at travelboommarketing.com?
Yes, Pete, I was just
Your,
going to
your
say
friendly
that.
neighborhood hotelier marketing guy and girl? Okay.
Nailed it.
All right. So do that, everybody.
Yep.
So before we leave for today, we have one more segment, which is 60 seconds for success. Or I'm sorry, 60 seconds to success. I'm handling it this week. And basically what 60 seconds to success is imagine you're in an elevator and you have just 1 minute to share a tip or a trick that's going to make someone's marketing efforts much more effective. So it's a challenge. The clock starts ticking and everybody kind of freaks out a little bit, including me, but I'm going to do my best.
It's very intense.
And I've got,
I'm happy you're doing it.
yeah, it's intense. I'm sure the people listening on the podcast or on the live stream are like, it's not that big of a deal, but try doing it. I guarantee you, after a couple thousand people are listening to it, you freak out.
Yep.
So anyway, so I've got a lot to cover. So I'm going to set the alarm and dive right in. All right. So my 60 seconds to success. Audit your website, your online listings, your printed materials to confirm accuracy. You have that Reddit example that we covered earlier is a perfect example of a guest who checked in expecting a 21 and over experience, got kids in the hallway doing cannonballs and all kinds of stuff. Not only are you misleading your guests, but you're also opening yourself up to a huge PR nightmare if a guest is particularly slighted by your performance. So what do? You or the person who has the most information about your property need to print out your policies and amenities set, review your site to make sure it matches, review TripAdvisor, the OTAs, Yelp, Google, Bing, all your listings. Make sure your printed materials are on point. Review your marketing guides that your social team, front desk, and other people use as well, and make sure that's good. At the end of the day, you want to ensure that the experience that you're describing in your marketing efforts reflects what the guest is going to get. Not only is that a best practice, but it also makes you a better innkeeper, which at the end of the day is what we all have to do. Woo!
Yeah, wait, where's the special effects? Oh, you've got the timer going again. No, turn it off.
Yeah.
No, we need confetti. That was great.
Oh, yeah, so I do need like confetti and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the background, like the woo.
So I do have, what do I have here? Oh, I can't find my clapping people. So, oh, here it is.
Perfect.
Nice. So I know, Mackenzie, what do you think? I think this is kind of about that, going back to the whole Reddit thing and how, what was her name? Something Broccoli? Okay, Broccoli.
Yeah. I think this is a great one. I really love this segment that we do because it's a small actionable tip to help you become a better hotelier, which is obviously the purpose of everything that we do. But really what I would say too is an analogy that we use a lot internally is your website is your digital lobby. So your tip is making sure that everything's in line in the physical lobby, at the front desk with all of the printed materials, the marketing guides, everything that you mentioned in your list, but also your digital lobby, which is your website. You need to have a streamlined experience. A guest is going to be really, really disappointed, similar to OK Broccoli. They get to the property and it's not what they were promised online. So I totally agree. It avoids a huge PR nightmare, like you said.
Right. It's one of those things where if you take the time to step back and look at your property from a third person perspective, what are you doing versus what do you say that you're doing? Things like that. Are you saying that you have a wonderful hot tub or a rooftop pool, but you closed it down 6 months ago? You got to take that off your site. You got to make sure that people understand, because OK Broccoli would have had an amazing time at this property that she went to, even if she wanted to have a 21 over experience. But if she booked knowing it was a family resort, wouldn't have been a problem. But you're delivering something different than what they asked for.
Exactly, and I really like that you brought that up. I think it kind of makes me think that a lot of the time, I think boutique hoteliers need to take their ego out of it. And I hate to say that because boutique hotels are amazing and they require a lot of love and effort, but you have to make sure that you're fulfilling your promises. It's not anything you have to be able to give yourself, I feel like, constructive criticism and say exactly what you said. If I were a guest, and I went on my website, where am I getting confused? Where am I getting tripped up? Where am I hesitant to book a stay here? And really think about it from that third party perspective. I think it could do everybody wonders. So I really like that you brought that up.
Yeah. So, well, there you go. So that was 60 Seconds to Success. Definitely take that, share it, and everything else to let all the other hoteliers in the world know about it. If you have an idea for 60 seconds, I'll be honest with you, we're kind of running out of ideas. So anything that you have that you want to tip on, we'll definitely put the effort in and see if we can share it with you in less than a minute. And that is the show. Mackenzie, any parting words of wisdom that you would share, or are you all good for the day?
I think I'm good. Yeah, I would love to get some hotelier feedback on this and see if we aligned on some of the challenges, and potentially get some ideas for the next episode to help our hotelier friends.
Indeed. So, all right, we'll go ahead and wrap everything up. If you want to learn more about Travel Boom, go to travelboommarketing.com. If you want the show notes and more for this episode, you can go to travelboommarketing.com/podcast and then use your thumb or your cursor or whatever you're navigating with and click on episode 271, which is the 3 challenges that a boutique owner has and how to solve them. The last thing I'll say is this was our first episode that is live on both LinkedIn and YouTube. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you want, we'll be live in 2 weeks at 3:30 Eastern, and we'll be doing another episode when that topic is to be determined. But hopefully it was helpful. We love to have your thoughts, so hit us up, let us know, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Can
With
I
that,
please do the exit? I'm
you
begging.
can.
Okay.
All right, it's all you. I am keeping my mouth shut and
Okay.
go for it.
And with that, Travel Boom is out.